What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Sports Economy, a podcast that focuses on following the money while highlighting the journeys of those who are making a great impact in sports, business, and philanthropy. I'm your host, Chris Kane, and let's get it going today with our guest, Mac Gardner. Mac, amazing to have you here. Super excited for today's episode. So let's just kick it off, and let's rope in our listeners to a little bit about you and your background. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. My name is Matt Gardner. I am a certified financial planner. I am also an author of a couple books for Money Bears, which is probably backwards on your screen, and Motivate Your Money. I'm also the founder and chief education officer of FinLit Tech. And our mission at the company is to build a bridge between financial literacy and financial technology. And so I've been blessed, been in the business for 20 plus years. I've worn a lot of different hats when it comes to personal finance, commercial lending, wealth management, insurance, 401k, retirement plans. And so I'm always excited to join friends and colleagues in the financial education space to talk about personal finance. And so I'm happy to spend some time with you today, Chris.
Amazing, amazing. So let's dive in and just kind of starting with the four money bears. Going from more of a traditional route, and what made you want to write the four money bears, which, as I understand, is really the first push into financial literacy education.
So my first book I wrote because I have my practice. I have been doing financial planning for years with clients. I've presented over 4,000 financial plans. And the thing that was really eye-opening, Chris, was that I was working with people that had a lot of money, but really didn't have a good core understanding of some basic financial planning, concepts, the difference between term insurance and permanent insurance, the difference between a 401k or an IRA or just a regular brokerage account, and why it's important to have a will. So all these things that folks that are CFPs or financial advisors take for granted, I thought this is really weird. So that's why I wrote the first book, Motivate Your Money. About a year into having my practice, one of my clients came to me and said, Mac, love the first book. Thank you so much. Love your Mac nuggets and all the little ways that you try to, you know, simplify this financial planning process, because it can be very daunting, it can be very complicated, and we really try to make it easy for folks to understand. That was the whole idea behind the first book. She said, would you be open to maybe writing something for kids? I was like, all right, like how young? She said, like elementary school. I said, ooh, that's young. I never really thought about it that way. So I started doing some research, and there's a Cambridge study that came out a few years ago that says a child's connectivity with money actually starts by age 7.
Wow.
So at age 7, kids understand what money does. They understand the functions of it. And so I said, okay, well, let me take some of the concepts, because in my first book I talk about the 5 steps to financial success. You got to plan accordingly, spend cautiously, save diligently, invest wisely, and give generously. So if you can do those 5 things throughout your, financial life cycle in your life, really cool things will happen. You'll have money for retirement, and you'll have assets, and you'll have ability to pass things on, and legacy, and all that fun stuff. So distilled the concept to the 4 money bears: spender bear, saver bear, investor bear, and giver bear, which are really the 4 basic things you can do with money. There's only 4. So why not create a platform or book? Kids seem to be the only ones that read books nowadays, that allows a parent with young children to start that conversation, because there's a pretty good chance, Chris, that the parents never got the exposure.
Hmm.
So if the parents never got it, how can they start the conversation with their kids? So that's really what we try to do with the 4 Money Bears, is to provide parents with a fun and entertaining way to start the conversation about money management with their kids.
I love that. Yeah. So kind of within the four money bears, what area of all the ors, the savor, the investor, of those categories, have you find the biggest lack of knowledge amongst your reader base? Where's it that area where people are just like light bulb? Oh my god! Either for themselves as parents or the
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
You know.
So uh, when I started doing book readings at public schools, I said, okay, I always talk about the 3 E's of public speaking. You want to engage your audience, you want to educate your audience, and you want to entertain them. You want to give folks a good reason to listen to what you're listening to or talking about. And so I said, okay, what could I do? So I said, okay, I keep $100 bill with me in my wallet. Something that I've just done for years. Don't know why, but and for some reason you ever need some cash, there's always like $100 hanging around somewhere. So I keep $100 bill with me.
My dad just gave me the same advice. He's like, Chris, do not leave the house without cash on you. You'll never know when you need it, and you rather have it and not need it than need it than not have it.
Yeah. Bingo. So I have this money. I said, you know what? Let me do this. Let me take this $100 bill out and hold it up. And the first time I did it, Chris, I held up the $100 bill and I asked kids, if I gave you this $100 bill, what would you do with it? And what do you think an overwhelming majority of the response was?
Spend it.
Spend it, buy it, candy, Pokemon cards, toys, video games, shoes, everything, all that stuff. And it became an actual experiment. And I would do it every single time. And it became mind-blowing that, oh my goodness, our children are conditioned to consume from a very young age. Then you have this one kid maybe raise their hand and say, oh, I put in my piggy bank. I'm like, okay, thanks for being different, but you're lying. You wouldn't do that. But the thing is that, so what it showed me is that children understand the concept of spending. In fact, it's the first financial habit that they pick up from their parents growing up is they watch their parents' spending habits. They understand the concept of savings because, we say put money in your piggy bank or put in your wallet or something. But the idea of investing, to circle back and answer your question, that's typically what makes the little eyeballs pop open a little bit like, ooh, and I position it this way. You remember those shoes that you said you wanted, those Nikes? You could buy those Nikes, but did you know you could actually own the company that makes the shoes? And I'm like, really? I could own? Yes, yeah. You can own a share of Nike. Mom and Dad can go and go to whether app or E-Trade or TD or whatever, or Fidelity, and they can actually own a share of Nike, and they can buy a share of that company for you. And it's like, wow, I didn't know that. Anything that you see around you that you like so much, the candy, the shoes, the video games, did you know you can actually own the company that makes those video games? Wow. And so that's really what opens up children's minds, is because I think a lot of times people underestimate the fact that the kids can actually understand that concept. And then, you talk about real estate. I remember doing a book reading one time, and a little boy said, yeah, my mom and dad, we buy buildings. That's how we invest. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So they understand it. Gold, jewelry, certain cultures, buying gold, buying silver, buying jewelry, that's a way to invest for the long term. So that's really the thing that I think opens a lot of young people's eyes and adults' eyes too, is that investing side, because that's typically where a lot of folks either haven't been exposed too much, or if they have been, they've been guided by someone else to do that.
Oh, 100%. That's super interesting. I mean, it's great, one in general, when you see those little kids' eyes just like illuminate, and they're just like, oh wow, that exists. Yeah. And it's just the concept of investing at points is foreign to some people. And I remember years back, it was one of the Hard Knocks series episodes, and one of I forget what team it was. It was a couple years back, and it was in the tight end room. And I'm pretty sure. And so one of the guys was explaining compound interest to the rest of the tight end room. Yeah. And they were just like, wow. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, even, if these kids don't learn it early, you don't know how long it will go on where they don't. And then the stakes only get higher as you get older. And so it's just so imperative.
And let me share some information on that, because that's what you just said is so important in the overall picture of where we are when it comes to financial education. So 21 states, Chris, today, 21 states require any sort of financial literacy education by high school. All right? So think about it. If you live in one of those 21 states and you are fortunate to have your child get some sort of guidance, by their senior year in high school, they're around maybe 17, 18, right? But the statistics and studies show that a child's connectivity with money starts by age 7. So if you live in one of those states, there's 10 years worth of either no information or misinformation about money. that these kids are getting, right?
Yep.
Imagine if you don't live in one of those 21 states where you're not getting any sort of education. And so that's why I think, the For Money Bears book has gotten so much traction, so much popularity by consumers as well as financial advisors who utilize the book to share with their clients, because it's really it's a tool that's not out there, but people are realizing now with COVID and all these other things, and the economic shakeups that people are having in their financial lives, they're realizing and they're looking for resources to be able to teach their kids and talk to their kids about managing money.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I know, in my household growing up, so I have an older sister, so we're 14 months apart, almost Irish twins.
Yeah.
And, the difference between the two, and she'll laugh, when she hears me say this, is, we grew up in a very financially literate household, right? Both our parents are very good with money. And me growing up, I was my sister's bank. And so she would get $1, spend $1,
Yep.
and then come to me and be like, Chris, can you spot me? I'm like,
So
okay.
she was the spender bear and you were the saver bear.
Yep. I wanted to see how much I could actually have. Like, that was the accomplishment, and even it went beyond almost. And it was like, it became ridiculous, even with like Halloween candy. I remember in my little kid mind being like, I want to make sure I have enough candy for the long run. I don't want to eat it all, because I want to kind of spread it out over time.
Yeah.
And so it's just like weird things.
In the same household. Household.
Same household.
Both parents sharing the same stories, sharing the same information, and you can have two disparate views of how to deal with money. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yep. And so, kind of, piggybacking off of, as we see kids today, they're so, technological. Well, that's not any word. They're very technology literate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you feel how is technology playing a role in democratizing, I can't talk today, democratizing education in particular, and then financial literacy education as well?
Great question. I look at it this way. Technology is changing literally everything around us, right? So from a fintech or personal finance perspective, there are apps out there that deal with banking. Like, when was the last time you walked into a branch?
Mm-hmm. Me? God.
Yeah,
Years.
exactly. Yeah. There's apps out there that can help you with investing. You've seen what's been going on with that. There are apps out there that can help you when it comes to getting a loan for the personal loan, even for a mortgage. You can go on your phone and get a mortgage through an app or through technology. So you've got this litany of resources on what I call that side of the house that shows you stuff to do with your money. But when you look at the other side of the house, which is stuff that teaches you what to do with money, there's hardly anything there. Which is mind blowing. And so I think that's the open ocean, I think, that you and I sit down and have discussions about all the time, about being able to really help people to be able to use technology to get information to parts of the country, parts of the world, because if you think about it, that don't have easy access to this information. You look at, kids in lower socioeconomic areas. You talk about diversity and inclusion initiatives. You talk about just folks that need you have folks that need the information, and you also have folks that want the information to be able to teach those folks. And I think technology is what's going to be able to be the driver in getting this information out to people who really need it.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's so important for the accessibility of technology, and then the how-to on the utilization of that technology. Like you see, kind of stories and reports all the time that it's a bit of a conundrum today, in a more of a general sense, where we all know that pretty much all the knowledge of humanity is accessible by anyone with an internet connection. Mm-hmm. Yet, for some reason, we're all not insanely intelligent. It's kind of an odd dichotomy between that. And so, the more, especially financial literacy, education and content can get in front of people in the ways that are digestible, like the four money bears, especially starting at a young age when with the kids, it's seen as a game to them. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
The
that,
gamification aspect, I think, is big, and we're working on that too. That's something we're working on. I use a formula when it comes to the overall financial wellness of a society, of a people. It's financial literacy, which is the education, plus financial capability, which are the tools. So
mhm,
too many times, to your point, Chris, there's a bunch of education out there, tons and tons of education, tons of education. But if folks don't have the tools to be able to implement the education, if they don't have the checking accounts, if they don't have the investment accounts, if they don't have the tools that allow them to enact this education, right? You can't have financial wellness, and that's what we're really trying to do is to get financial wellness for all out there for as many people as possible.
amazing. And so, just let's take a second and speak about kind of what you've been up to now with FinLit Tech. What's the mission, and what's the end goal?
So,
Kind of a couple years down the line.
yeah, yeah. So the idea behind FinLit Tech is our mission is to build a bridge between financial literacy and financial technology, right? And if we can work with partners out there to become a destination for folks who are building these tools, I like to say folks that are looking for, you know, they're looking for commercial, meaning they're looking for the ability to grow and get business going, right? That's if they're looking for consultation, and they're looking for folks just to be able to talk about, hey, what's going on here, what's going on there. You and I have worked together for some time, and we've been
Hmm.
able to help each other out and grow our respective endeavors just through consultation, just by hey, you need to talk to so and so, you need to talk to so and so, or if they're looking for capitalization, if they're looking to grow their business and are looking to access capital. That's what we want FinLit Tech to be, is that destination for folks, again, who are looking for consultation, commercialization, or capitalization at some point in time. Some of the cool things we're working on now is the actual For Money Bears app. We're looking at different ways to gamify the book. We published the book years ago. It was a pet project. It was just something to help folks. And every person that gets the book says, Mac, love the book. Is there an app?
Yep.
It'd be cool if there was an app. Do you have an app, Mac? Mac, we sure would love an app. And I'm like, oh, all right. So we're definitely working on that. Our firm recently partnered with eMoney. eMoney is in the process of building out a financial wellness app called Incentive. And so our firm partnered with eMoney to help them build out their financial education and financial wellness space. So helping with guiding the development of the app, bringing in different perspectives. When you've been around the block as long as I have, and you've touched all these different aspects of finance, and a company's looking to build an app that's going to touch on all those various aspects of personal finance, I'm able to leverage and utilize those insights and those resources from knowledge and experience to help guide this mission, this endeavor. So we're doing a lot of really cool things. But the pet project that we're working on right now is to get that For Money Bears app out and get it out there for schools, get it out there direct to consumer, and even get it out for institutions who want to promote more financial literacy.
Amazing. What I know I can say about FinLit Tech is it's the hero Gotham deserves and needs. So
We're trying, man. We're trying. We're trying.
awesome. So kind of taking a quick turn in some questions.
Mm-hmm.
So more about your own financial experience and journey. So one pointed question is, if you could pick just one key of financial advice that you learned, who is it from, what was it, and really kind of how did that shape your perspective at whatever stage in your journey we're at.
Yeah. So I think one of the most influential messages that still resonates with me today, for folks who are fans of reading books, is a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And I remember reading that as a young advisor, and one of the core tenets of that book is to save 10% of every dollar you've ever earned. And if you start paying yourself first, right, before you pay everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
how that will allow you to, leverage the power of compound interest, like we talked about before we jumped on this
Yep.
recording. I tell folks that your money can work harder for you than you can ever work for your money. All right. So if you start that early in life of putting money aside for yourself to allow you to either save or invest, right? Because remember the 5 steps of financial success. So it's plan accordingly. Got to have a plan. Then it's spend cautiously, right? If you spend more than you have, kind of you can't
Yeah.
get to the save diligently. And then once you're able to save and you have those savings, then you can step up to the ability to invest wisely, right? And then once you've been able to do that, you can give generously, and of course you can give at any point in time. But it's easier to give once you have disposable income, discretionary assets, or what have you. It's a lot easier to give that way. So that I think is probably the top thing that I've kept with me is just to save, just save from a really really early state in life and start putting money away to work for you.
Oh yeah. I mean that's such an important lesson, for people to really not just know, because I hear that all the time. Is people know a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but they execute on very little.
Yeah.
And really just communicating that to people and getting into action is really just so important.
And
Uh,
it's so funny, just to piggyback
yeah.
on that. I have 3 little ones, quickly becoming 3 big ones.
Yeah.
And from
Too
when
quick.
from when they were small, I would harp on them, and they were like, "Yes, Papa, we know the 4 things you do with money." But I say, "What's the other
Hmm.
thing I always harp on?" And they're like, "Habits, behaviors, traits, Papa. We know habits, behaviors, traits." So the habits that you develop from a young age in any point in time, you know, they become who you are, and these habits become behaviors,
Hmm.
right? And then those behaviors eventually become traits. They become who you are. So apply that to a financial education perspective. Imagine if we could start kids on this behavior path really early to, okay, you got to start saving. Anytime you get money, you got to start saving. And then, as you get older and maybe you get your first job, you understand the idea of investing, and or maybe even mom and dad got you an account, to be able to invest and do some of these other neat things. And so it's in your awareness. Oh my gosh, I've got this habit of whenever I get money, I'm gonna invest in something. I'm gonna put money to make my money grow for me. Imagine habits, behaviors, traits. So imagine that's another message I'd get out to folks out there too. Is if you have young kids, or even if you're starting off your career, get into those habits. Right? It's good
Hmm.
to know it, but if you know it and you don't do anything about it, it's not gonna help you.
Absolutely. And I think, that just kind of, opens up another, area of discussion, right? Which is the underlying psychology behind financial literacy, the behavioral economics, the financial decision making psychology around everything. And, how imperative it is to, really understand how that is, again, built from, a very young age. And
Yeah.
so,
How much time we got? Because that's like a whole nother hour
yeah.
right there.
Oh, yeah. I know. And it's just like, even like, things that we're kind of, well in the mix of this now. But, I remember, a couple years back where it was, the conversation was around, okay, you have, you're spending money more digitally, right? You have your credit, your debit, opposed to cash. And it's like the actual loss aversion of losing something that you can hold is greater than something that's digitized. So, like, in other words, me swiping my card, what I see at the end of the day is, okay, on my credit card statement in my bank, it's just pixels on the screen. But if I'm handing over a $20 bill, it's just like, that's a different feeling. You're just like, you're taking it, you're taking
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And
Which is
it's
why I think it's important to teach kids at that early age about that important aspect, because you're right. We are moving towards a sort of digital age of
transaction of commerce. Yeah.
transaction, commerce. Yeah, that's the C word I was looking for. Thank you,
There
Chris.
you go.
We're moving toward that digital age of commerce, but kids still use money.
Yep.
Thankfully, kids still use money. I've got a 6-year-old. The kid's lost 6 teeth in the past like 2 months. I'm like, dude, Tooth Fairy's just filling
Yeah.
this kid's bank account up. You know what I'm saying? And so kids still get money. And so if we can, hopefully we're developing a little saver bear over there because he
Hmm.
doesn't want to spend his money for nothing.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm keeping my money. I'm spending your money. I'm like,
Exactly.
okay. That's pretty cool. But we do need, Chris, to your point, to educate them about the difference, especially this difference between credit cards
Hmm.
versus debit cards,
Yep.
because they're two totally different worlds. And one technique that I use when I do speaking engagements to schools is like, okay, with a credit card, you're spending someone else's money,
Exactly. Yeah.
right?
It
And
ain't
if you're
yours.
yeah, and if you're spending someone else's money, they're gonna charge you to spend their money, right? With a debit card, and if you go to a store, that's your money. And if you don't have enough money in your bank account, that's going to get declined.
Hmm.
So it's a their money versus your money perspective, and I try not to get too deep in one being bad or credit being evil, because technically it's not, no financial tool
Yeah.
is good or bad inherently. It's
Pros
just
and
how you
cons.
use it. It's
Yeah.
how you use it. But I think that's important in this sort of digital age, to be able to start teaching kids really early. There's a difference. Um,
Hmm.
Working on our second book, and so we've got Banker Box Turtle, who's going to be introducing kids to banking. We've
There you
got
go.
Lender Lion, who's going to be introducing kids to lending, and we've got Omnibus Owl, who's going to be talking about investments and so on and so on. But we also have a character we developed called Crypto Cat,
There we go.
and Crypto Cat's going to go out there and teach kids about digital currency. So we understand that needs to be introduced in their lives as well.
The cool crypto cat.
Yeah, man. And he's got J's. He wears
He's,
J's. He's
of
got the
course.
ones. He's got some ones
Yep.
on. Super cool.
He's got to.
Yeah.
He made all that money. Hopefully he got out before the downturn we just hit.
Man, yeah. I've heard. I try not to go deviate too far, but I remember like in the early 2010s, a buddy of mine, and they were living in Houston at the time, was like, "Mac, what do you think about this Bitcoin thing?" I was like,
Hmm.
fiat currencies, all these conversations came and go, and so we bought a little bit, and we saw the volatility, and like, whatever, and we bailed. And then I heard some crazy statistic that if you bought Bitcoin in 2012 or 2013, if you bought $5 worth of Bitcoin, it'd be worth like $200,000 right now.
Yep.
And so, being in the investment space, there are not very many, man, I wish moments that I
Yep.
have. A couple of them are not like quadrupling down on Apple when everyone was pouring dirt on their grave.
Hmm.
The other one was bailing and getting out of Marvel before Disney bought them. And then the third one is not just even forgetting I had that Bitcoin account with like
Yeah.
a couple $100 in it. Because if I'd done that, I'd be like, whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. So
I mean, it's rare that those things happen where you go from like a dollar a penny to you know Bitcoin 60,000. It's like it's a way and just turning it back to financial education. It's a way to you know open people's eyes at the young age, even when they might not have the capital to deploy in that.
mhm.
But for them to learn to identify these kind of situations that are actually very rare, and to know how to dig in and learn from the mistakes or the times that other people have missed out on things,
Yeah.
and to understand that, hey, in your own personal portfolio you could have a YOLO
Mm,
amount where you're just like, screw it, whatever happens
yeah.
happens, and I'm just going to bet big with this
With this
segment of my portfolio.
portion of my portfolio,
Yes.
not the whole
Whole thing,
thing,
yes.
a
The
portion.
portion.
Yeah,
Exactly. And if it
yeah,
hits, wonderful. If it doesn't,
yeah.
but then, a lot of, kind of just last thing on the crypto side, is I have a lot of friends that, are in that space and do a lot of stuff with that. And some of the principles of traditional investing that are having trouble crossing over because of the ubiquitousness of the crypto space, that everyone can get into it, obviously. And it's the rationale of, you don't want to fall into the classic investor traps where,
Mhm,
you say, okay, at the get, you're like, all right, say I bought Bitcoin at 10 grand, right?
mhm,
Back in, earlier in 2020 or whenever it was. It's think a little over 10 grand, 17, something like that. And you say, okay, in my head, what is the best return I can get? If I see it jump, what's my ideal?
Mm-hmm.
And if it hits that, I'm happy. I don't care. I'm out. Just put a sell option, a sell order in.
Yeah.
I'm selling. But people get in the trap of it's gonna go up. It's gonna keep, and then it drops out, and they're like, I should have sold. It's like
there's this adage in
get
our
your
business.
plan.
Yeah, have a plan for sure. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
Yeah,
You've ever heard that before?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with so whenever you're dealing with investments, and I know this isn't specifically an investment segment that we're talking about, but when I sit down with clients, I say, hey, look, we put together something called an IPS, an investment policy statement, right? And that investment policy statement pretty much dictates your tolerance for your investment portfolio. Long term, short term, you're going to have different tranches, different pots of money that are doing different things. And you can theoretically have different IPSs for different pots of money. So I think for a lot of folks, this whole digital currency thing is very new, and it's different, right? Even though it's been around for about 10 years. But like anything, it's an investment. Look, there's Forex. You can jump on Forex, which is foreign exchange, and you could make significantly high rates of return on money trading in foreign currencies. It can't be done. Should you do it with all of your money? No.
Definitely not.
Because it's a very highly specialized area, and there's a lot of movement and volatility in that space. And so if you want to do that full time and that's your job, and you just want to be, paying attention to the markets, or you've built some sort of algorithm, some sort of tool to be able to capture the upside and do all that stuff, and then we deal with derivatives and all that, that's fine. But for the most part, it should be just a relatively small part of the overall picture. And hey, if you hit, that's great. The same thing should be said about Amazon. When Amazon first came out, some guy was trying to sell books, and now it's selling for thousands of dollars a share. So there things are going to happen in life. The new thing will come around. Some new tool will come around. Some new way to invest will come around. But just understanding that all investment is risk, and we all have certain appetites for risk. Understand your appetite for risk. Have someone help you manage that process, and that's why I talk about invest wisely in that step 4. It can be so complex, it can be so volatile that having someone to help you is going to be really, really important in the process.
Absolutely. I mean, that guidance is key. It's not the devil that gets you; it's the devil that you don't. And like speaking of volatility, 2 points. One of my good buddies who does a lot of like crypto trading, in his spare time, and has made like a good deal of money. One of the things that he always kind of coached me up on with in particular with crypto, not investments in general, but was that everyone in the crypto game seems to just be long on things, but the people that really do it and are really good at it, they're trading on volatility. They don't care if it goes up, down, left, or sideways. They don't care. They're just like, I'm trading on volatility, and it works for them. But and then last thing, just for listeners to be aware of, I have not heard any news of this in a while, but I know it got approved by the regulatory authorities. I don't know the right name that they're calling it, but the Silicon Valley Stock Exchange was the beta name for it, long-term stock exchange, and so they're kind of putting the current investment exchanges flipping it on its head and saying, hey, we're not going to be running in quarterly cycles and judging on all these earnings. We're looking at horizons of years out. And so it's just all that long-term investment focus and really saying, hey, guys, hold it and wait. And, putting that into your strategy.
And it makes a lot of sense. And here's why. When you're dealing with someone who is not really accustomed to investing, so as a CFP, or even before I had my CFP as an advisor, when you're dealing with a starting investor, they'll have some money, and then like a week later, how did the money do?
Yeah.
Mac, how am I doing? Did you double my money? Is my 10,000, 20,000? I'm like, oh my goodness, this person they don't know what they don't know, right, Chris?
Yeah, we're not betting on horses here. Yeah.
I'm like, so the analogy I like to use is, and I actually put it in my first book, is if someone comes up to you, Chris, and says, "Hey, Chris, I'm trying to get to the mall," have you ever told them, "Okay, get in your car. When you get to the stop sign, make a left and drive 26,400 feet"?
Yeah.
Have you ever said that to anyone?
No.
No. You say, "Get in your car when you get to the stop sign, make a left and drive 5 miles down the road," right?
Hmm.
It's the reference point of time, especially when you're dealing with investing, because the investing cycle, you're investing in businesses, and businesses don't technically have an end date,
Hmm.
right? Business entities don't have, okay, we want to go to be in business for 5 years. No. The thought process is to be in business for infinity.
Hmm.
And so if you understand that's what investing is you're putting money into business ventures, entities that have potential risk based upon their size, small cap, mid cap, large cap, international, all of that fun stuff. You'll stop looking at things from a how many days. You stop looking at it from 26,400 feet to,
Hmm.
oh, I need to start looking at this from years.
Yep.
Yes. That's the framework we need to be looking at, how well our portfolio, how well this investment does. So it makes sense to start expanding that horizon to something that's not quarterly, monthly, or whatever, because it's true. That's more in line with what businesses were created to do.
Absolutely. And so, we've been talking a lot about the do's. So let's turn and talk about some of the don'ts. And so, an example of the don'ts: keeping up with the Joneses. And so, can you speak a little bit to, how, with, your clientele, your readers, people that you talk to, kind of how do you coach them away, or even, with your kids,
Yeah.
buying the new J's, a great example of keeping up with the Joneses, like kind of what's the techniques, the methodology involved that you use to communicate that, restraint and that,
Yeah.
delayed gratification of things.
Yeah. So if the kids were in here again, and by the way, the Four Money Bears book is actually based upon the story of me teaching my kids
Hmm.
about money. Like, we go to the store and they want toys, and any of your listeners or viewers out here who have kids know that you go to Target, and the first place the kids went to is a toy aisle, and they want to buy
Yep.
toys, and you have to tell them no. And instead of saying we can't afford it, you got to get in their mind that we choose not to spend our money that way. Really important word. So I think by starting on the words that we use, right, when we're dealing with our kids or even with ourselves, is not that you can't afford it, because we can all afford a lot of things, but we're choosing not to spend our money. We have power over the things that we do, the
Hmm.
habits that we have with our money. So I think that's step one. The other thing, that if my kids were here, they'd be like, "Yes, Papa, we know," because I pound this into their heads, like, the rich stay rich by acting poor, the poor stay
Hmm.
poor by acting rich.
Yep.
And it's one of the oldest and best tenets when it comes to dealing with money, I think, that's out there, because a lot of times those folks that have all the bling and all the shine and all that stuff, they're living way above their means.
Hmm.
And one bad event happens in their life, uh, you know, pass away prematurely, loss of a job, anything like that, and their whole financial plan and their whole financial situation is shot. Whereas the lovely couple sitting in the home, driving their Toyota Camry, or driving their, decently, moderately priced car that's been spending below their means for all their life, those are the ones that when you sit down, you do a financial plan, and you're like, wow, they've
Yeah.
got a bunch of assets. They've got money saved away here. They've got money in their retirement accounts. They've got a second or third home, and they have this, that, and a third. So that's really the advice that I'd give. The rich, they're rich by acting poor. The poor stay poor by acting rich. They're realize really what your money's there to do. And if in your mind your money's there to take care of your family over the long term,
Hmm.
the fact that your financial body, and we can spend another hour on this, but your
Yep.
your your FinBot, as I call it, can last and live a lot longer than you can.
Yes.
And that if you start training and start putting things in play, that's why the DuPonts, the Rockefellers, that's why these families, they're getting checks from a trust,
Hmm.
from a financial body that was set up and built decades ago, right?
Yep.
So it can be done. It can be done. So that's the advice I'd give.
100%. And I think that's such an important point to, double down on, because like the idea of legacy,
Mhm.
right? What you're going to pass on, I feel doesn't occur to people until much later in life. When, from a financial journey perspective, and I'm hesitant to say it's too late,
Yeah.
but the sun is setting
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit, on
You
the
can't
time
eat
horizon.
tomorrow what you didn't plant yesterday.
Exactly.
That's another Mac nugget I like to share. It's like,
I
look,
love that.
you can't all of a sudden be 55 years old and be like, oh, I need to put some money away for retirement. Like, no.
No,
You can try, but you got to put a whole lot of money into that account in order to get that, or buy some Bitcoin at $5
yeah.
and hope it hits. So, I think that's another Mac nugget or message I like to share with folks. You can't eat tomorrow what you didn't plant yesterday. So start planting early.
Exactly. Plant corn, you get corn, right?
Pretty much.
And anyway, so I think this has been an absolutely amazing episode, full of amazing Mac nuggets. I love it. I love it. And so, final question before we wrap up here.
Yeah.
So this is a crossover from our previous series, Checkpoint, and we call it this segment called The Question. And so what the question is what's one thing that you've done or experienced in your life that you would recommend our listeners do or experience in theirs, and why?
Huh. That's a good one. I can go so many places with that. I'm trying to think from like a personal perspective. I'm trying to think from a business perspective.
Could be anything.
So I try to live by these words. And the earlier in life that I really started living by it really changed the way I look at things. There are two types of people in the world, in my opinion. Those who don't go unless they know, or those who don't know unless they go.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Case in point. I'm driving. Mama Bear's in the car. You get to a parking lot. You're at the mall. Big parking lot. If you go to the right, that's the front of the lot close to the mall, right? You go to the left, you see a couple spots. And so there are people that don't go unless they know, meaning they know that there are spots over there, so that's where they're going to go. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Versus there are people that won't know unless they go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how will I know if there is an empty spot up front that could be sitting right in VIP? I won't know unless I go.
Mm-hmm.
So that in my life, if I had taken up that, and I try to live my life that way, the folks who live that way, the folks who, don't know unless they go, are the ones that typically are leading trends, or typically that are paving the way for others, because they got to find out
Yep.
what's over there, and the only way to know is to go. So I think that's what I'd share with folks. That's the thing that I try to live by, and if I'd done it earlier in life, maybe a lot more things could have positive things could have happened. And the downside of that too, Chris, as you know, is that sometimes negative things can happen.
Yep.
You could drive to the front, and all of a sudden, there are no spots, and you got to drive all the way back. But that's the question. Ask yourself that. What type of person are you? And neither one is right or wrong. But that's the question. Are you a type of person that you don't know unless you go, or the type of person you don't go unless you know?
I love it, and I couldn't add anything to that. That's perfect. And so again, thank you, Mac. Thank you for your time. This has been a great episode. Listeners, thank you for tuning in, and please tune in next time to another episode of Sports Economy. I'll see you then.
The journey continues.
Yep.